Jake Coleman took a sip of his morning coffee and looked out the window of his Seattle apartment. The rain was falling softly, just like every other morning. He checked his watch. It was 7:30, time to get ready for work. The first sign that something was wrong came as a strange hum in the air. Jake paused, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. The sound grew louder, like 1,000 engines starting at once. Then the sky turned red. Ships appeared above the city. They were massive dark shapes that blocked out the clouds. Jake had never seen anything like them. They weren't human ships. They weren't from Earth at all. The attack started seconds later. Beams of white light shot down from the ships. Where they touched, buildings vanished. Not destroyed or burned, just gone. Jake watched his neighbor's house disappear in a flash of light. Then the beam moved toward his building. He ran. He didn't grab anything, didn't think about where to go. He just ran down the stairs as fast as he could. Behind him, he heard the building starting to collapse. Other people were running too, screaming, crying. Nobody knew what was happening. In Washington, Emma Rodriguez sat in the Pentagon's command center. Screens showed the attacks happening all over the world. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. Every major city was under attack at the same time. What are they? Someone asked. We don't know, Emma said, watching the data scroll past. They appeared 20 minutes ago. No warning, no communication attempts. They just started firing. She tried to make sense of the readings. The energy weapons were unlike anything in human technology. Their ships moved in ways that broke the laws of physics as humans understood them. Earth's missiles bounced off their shields without leaving a scratch. Launch everything we have, the general beside her ordered. Emma watched as fighter jets took off from bases around the world. Missiles launched from submarines and ground installations. For a moment, she felt hope. Humanity was fighting back. Then the alien ships turned their weapons on the military forces. Jets vanished mid-flight. Missile bases were erased from existence. Naval fleets disappeared beneath the waves. In less than an hour, Earth's military might was gone. The aliens finally spoke 3 hours into the attack. Their message played on every radio, television, and computer screen on Earth. We are the Krivan Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. Stop all resistance or face total destruction. The voice was cold, mechanical. It spoke perfect English, but there was no emotion in it. No anger, no triumph. Just a statement of fact. In the ruins of Seattle, Jake had found shelter in an underground parking garage. Hundreds of other survivors huddled there with him. They listened to the message on someone's phone. What do we do? A woman asked. She was holding a child who wouldn't stop crying. Nobody answered. What could they do? In 3 hours, these aliens had destroyed more than humans had built in centuries. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were gone. Billions of people were already dead. The Krivans gave humanity 1 day to surrender. Government leaders who had survived met through emergency communications. They had no choice. Earth's defenses were gone. Its cities were in ruins. Continuing to fight meant extinction. The surrender ceremony happened on a Krivan ship hovering over what was left of New York. Earth's remaining leaders signed documents they couldn't read, in a language they didn't understand. The Krivans didn't care if humans understood. They just wanted obedience. From that day forward, humanity belonged to the Krivan Empire. They would work in mines, factories, and farms to serve their new masters. The Krivans had done this to dozens of worlds before Earth. To them, humans were just another conquered species. But in the ruins and refugee camps, in hidden bunkers and underground shelters, humans made a promise to each other. They would remember this day. They would remember the 3 billion dead. And someday, somehow, they would make sure nothing like this ever happened again. To anyone. Ever. 20 years had passed since the Krivans took Earth. The world looked different now. Gray factories covered the land where forests once grew. Mining pits scared the mountains. The oceans were being drained for minerals the Crivens needed. Paul Martinez stood at the entrance to Mineshaft 7. He used to teach physics at a university. Now he worked 12 hours a day breaking rocks in the asteroid belt. The Crivens had moved millions of humans to space to work their mines. The work was hard, but Paul had learned to see opportunity in everything. Every day, he watched the Criven guards. He studied their technology. He memorized their routines. He wasn't alone in this. All the human workers did the same thing. During rest periods, Paul met with other miners in the sleeping quarters. They shared what they had learned. The energy shields have a frequency pattern. Paul whispered to his group. I counted the pulses. They repeat every 47 seconds. Their weapons need charging time, added Maria Santos. 3 seconds between shots, sometimes 4 if they fire at full power. Small observations. Tiny pieces of information. But over 20 years, these pieces added up. Back on Earth, Lisa Thompson worked in the ruins of Chicago. The Crivens had left the destroyed cities as warnings. They wanted humans to remember what happened to those who resisted. But Lisa had turned the ruins into something else. Deep beneath the collapsed buildings, she had built a workshop. The Crivens thought she was just another salvage worker, collecting scrap metal for their factories. They didn't know she was studying their broken equipment. Lisa held up a damaged Criven power cell. After years of careful work, she understood how it worked. She could almost build one herself now. Almost. We need more time, she told her team. But we're getting closer. Her team was small, just 5 people who pretended to be salvage workers during the day. At night, they became engineers, studying alien technology in their hidden lab. The Crivens thought humans were broken. They saw a species that had given up. Humans worked without complaint. They followed orders. They never fought back. The Criven commanders wrote reports saying Earth was their most peaceful conquest. They were wrong. In the mining stations, workers left shifts at different times. This wasn't random. They were creating communication networks. A miner finishing work on Asteroid Station 3 would pass a tiny data chip to someone starting work on Station 5. That person would carry it to Mars colony. From there, it would reach Earth. The messages were simple. Technical data, guard schedules, weak points in Criven defenses. Each piece of information traveled slowly, carefully, from person to person. The Crivens never noticed. Paul made a discovery that changed everything. He found a Criven computer terminal left unguarded during a shift change. For 30 seconds, he had access to their network. He couldn't take anything, but he memorized what he saw. Ship classifications, weapon specifications, fleet positions. When he shared this information through the network, Lisa's team in Chicago started working faster. They knew what they were building now. They knew what humanity needed. The Crivens had made a mistake. They thought humans were like their other conquests. They thought fear and force were enough to control them forever. They didn't understand human patience. They didn't know that humans could play a very long game. In the 20th year of occupation, something else happened. Children who had been born after the invasion became adults. They had never known free Earth, but their parents had told them stories. These young people joined the network. They brought fresh energy and new ideas. We're not just studying them anymore, said Ben Parker, who had just turned 18. We're getting ready. Paul nodded. The time for only watching and learning was ending. The next phase was beginning. But they would still be patient. They would still be careful. The Crivens had taught humanity an important lesson. Never be unprepared again. In hidden workshops and secret meetings, in mines and factories across the solar system, humanity was preparing. The Crivens controlled Earth, but they didn't control human minds. They didn't control human determination. The long game was working. Soon, it would be time for the next move. The signal came at midnight. A simple message passed through the human network. Start. Greg Foster had been waiting for this moment for 5 years. He worked as a supervisor in Mining Station 12, trusted by the Krivens because he never caused problems. They didn't know he had spent those years mapping every corridor, every security post, every weapons storage room. Tonight, the weapons storage room was his target. Greg walked down the empty hallway. His footsteps echoed off the metal walls. The Kriven guard at the storage room barely looked up. Why would he? Greg had walked past this door every night for years. Inspection, Greg said, showing his supervisor badge. The guard waved him through. Greg entered the room and closed the door behind him. His hand shook as he opened the first weapons crate. Inside were Kriven plasma rifles. He had 30 seconds before the guard would get suspicious. Greg grabbed a rifle and pressed the activation switch. The weapon hummed to life. He had studied these weapons for years, but this was the first time he had held one. He opened the door and stepped out. The guard turned. His eyes went wide when he saw the rifle. "Sorry," Greg said. He pulled the trigger. The stun setting worked perfectly. The guard fell to the floor, unconscious but alive. Humans had agreed. No unnecessary killing. They would be better than the Krivens. Within minutes, Greg's team had secured the weapons storage. They distributed rifles to other human workers. The uprising had begun. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. On Mars, Amy Walker led an assault on a Kriven communications center. Her team used improvised EMPs built from mining equipment. The devices worked exactly as Lisa Thompson's designs had promised. The EMPs disabled Kriven technology without hurting anyone. Shields failed. Weapons stopped working. Computers went dark. In seconds, the most advanced technology in the galaxy became useless metal. On Earth, the uprising started in the factories. Workers who had pretended to be broken suddenly stood tall. They carried hidden weapons built from Kriven technology. They knew every weak point in Kriven defenses. The Krivens were not ready. They had conquered many species, but none had ever fought back like this. None had ever spent 20 years learning every detail of Kriven technology and tactics. In New London, a Kriven commander watched his security screens go dark one by one. He reached for his communicator, but it was dead. The door to his office opened. Human workers entered, carrying weapons his own species had designed. "Surrender," said Jane Miller, who had cleaned his office for 10 years. "This doesn't have to be violent." The commander stared at her. He had never really seen her before. To him, she had been just another human servant. Now she stood before him with steady hands and clear eyes, holding a Kriven rifle like she had used it all her life. The space battle of Luna Station became the turning point. Amy Walker commanded a captured Kriven destroyer. Her crew had spent years as maintenance workers on Kriven ships. They knew these vessels better than their builders. 3 Kriven warships responded to the emergency call from Luna Station. They expected to find a small riot. Instead, they faced a human crew that anticipated their every move. Amy's ship fired EMP torpedoes that Paul Martinez had helped design. The Kriven shields, which had seemed invincible for 20 years, flickered and died. Their weapons went silent. Their engines stopped. "This is humanity calling," Amy broadcast to the disabled ships. "Your occupation of our world is over. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly." The Kriven captains had no choice. Their mighty warships were now floating metal. Their weapons were useless. Their empire's control over Earth was crumbling. By dawn, humans controlled most of the solar system. The uprising had been planned too carefully, executed too precisely. The Krivens had taught humans to be patient, to be thorough, to never attack until victory was certain. Now humans used those lessons against their teachers. The students had become the masters. The conquered had become the conquerors. But humans would not make the same mistakes the Krivens had made. This was not about revenge. This was about justice. This was about making sure no species would ever suffer as humanity had suffered. 3 months after the uprising began, Human forces controlled Earth and most of the solar system. The Krivan occupiers were held in secure facilities, treated with the dignity they had never shown to humans. Now came the harder task, deciding what humanity would do with their newfound freedom. Matt Johnson stood in what had once been the United Nations building in New York. The Krivans had destroyed it during their first attack, but humans had rebuilt it as a symbol of hope. Today, representatives from every human settlement gathered here. "We need to talk about our future," Matt said to the assembled crowd. "We've won our freedom. Now we must decide what kind of species we want to be." The debate lasted for days. Some wanted to attack the Krivan homeworld, to make them pay for what they had done. Others wanted to isolate Earth, to build defenses so strong that no one could ever hurt them again. But Matt and others had a different idea. "The Krivans attacked us because they could," Matt explained. "They saw a weaker species and took what they wanted. How many other species have suffered the same fate? How many will suffer in the future?" Karen Davis, who now commanded a fleet of captured Krivan ships, stood up. "We've learned something important. We know how to fight. We know how to win. We could use this knowledge to protect others." "But why should we?" someone asked. "Why risk ourselves for strangers?" "Because we know what it feels like," said Lisa Thompson. "We know the pain of losing everything to a stronger enemy. We can stop that from happening to others." The discussion continued late into the night. People shared stories of the occupation. They remembered the 3 billion dead. They thought about children on other worlds who might face the same fate. Finally, they'd reached an agreement. They would create what became known as the human doctrine. The principle was simple but powerful. Any species that launched an unprovoked attack on another would face the combined might of humanity. "We're not becoming conquerors," Matt explained. "We're becoming protectors. We're making sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." The doctrine included specific rules. Humans would not interfere in fair conflicts between equals. They would not take sides in civil wars or political disputes. But if a strong species attacked a weaker one without justification, humanity would respond. Karen Davis took command of the new human defense fleet. Using captured Krivan technology and human innovations, they built ships more advanced than anything in the galaxy. But these ships had a purpose beyond war. "We'll patrol the galaxy," Karen announced. "We'll watch for aggression. And when we find it, we'll stop it." The first test came sooner than expected. Long-range scanners detected a Krivan battle fleet approaching the inhabited world in a nearby system. The planet was home to the Melody, a peaceful species with no space travel capabilities. Karen led the human fleet to intercept. They arrived just as the Krivans were preparing to attack. "Krivan fleet," Karen broadcast. "This is the human defense fleet. You will cease your approach to the Melody world immediately." The Krivan commander laughed. "Humans? You dare challenge us? We will crush you as we did before." "No," Karen replied. "You won't." The human ships activated their new weapons. EMP fields disabled half the Krivan fleet in seconds. Precision strikes destroyed weapon systems without harming crew quarters. The battle was over in minutes. "The galaxy has changed," Karen told the defeated Krivan commander. "The age of conquest is over. Any species that attacks another will answer to humanity." News of the human doctrine spread quickly through the galaxy. Some species feared humanity's new power. But as humans began protecting vulnerable worlds, that fear turned to respect. The Melody were the first saved, but not the last. Within a year, 3 more aggressive species had been stopped. Each time, humans disabled their fleets and sent them home with the same message. The galaxy now had protectors. Humanity had transformed their greatest tragedy into their greatest purpose. They had been pushed to the edge of extinction, but instead of breaking, they had become unbreakable. Instead of seeking revenge, they chose to protect others. The human doctrine was more than words. It was a promise written in the memory of 3 billion dead. Never again. The message came through every communication channel in human space. The Krivan Empire was gathering its grand fleet. every warship they had, every weapon they possessed. Their target was clear: Earth. Ryan Cooper read the intelligence report in his command center on Luna Base. As the new commander of humanity's combined forces, he had been expecting this. The Krivans would not accept defeat easily. "How many ships?" he asked his staff. 3,000, reported James Park. 10 times what we have. They're bringing everything. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Krivans were coming to finish what they had started 20 years ago. This time, they would make sure humanity never rose again. "When will they arrive?" Ryan asked. 2 weeks, James replied. "They're taking time to gather their entire fleet." Ryan nodded. 2 weeks to prepare for the biggest battle in human history. 2 weeks to prove that humanity deserved its new role as galactic protectors. Across human space, preparations began. Every captured Krivan ship was brought into service. Every weapon was checked and rechecked. But Ryan knew they needed more than weapons. They needed strategy. "We can't match their numbers," he told his commanders. "But we know something they don't expect. We know their weaknesses." Sarah Mitchell had spent years studying Krivan battle tactics. Now she put that knowledge to use. Their fleet fights in rigid formations. They follow strict command structures. If we disrupt their leadership, the whole fleet becomes confused. "Then that's what we'll do," Ryan decided. "We'll turn their strength into weakness." The human fleet took position near Jupiter. Ryan chose the battlefield carefully. The gas giant's radiation would interfere with Krivan sensors. Its moons would provide cover for quick strikes. When the Krivan Grand Fleet arrived, it was an awesome sight. Thousands of warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their commander broadcast a message to humanity. "You have defied the Krivan Empire. You have attacked our ships. Now you will learn the price of resistance. Surrender or be destroyed." Ryan's response was simple: "Come and try." The battle began with a surprise. Human ships launched EMP torpedoes from behind Jupiter's moons. The first wave of Krivan ships lost power immediately. Their perfect formation began to break apart. Sarah Mitchell led rapid strike forces. Her teams used captured Krivan fighters, modified with human improvements. They knew exactly where to hit: command bridges, communication arrays, weapon controls. Each strike was precise, disabling rather than destroying. The Krivans fought back with massive firepower. Their energy weapons lit up space around Jupiter. Several human ships were hit, but for every human vessel lost, 10 Krivan ships were disabled. The turning point came when Sarah's team reached the Krivan flagship. Using codes they had captured during the uprising, they hacked into its communication system. Suddenly, the Krivan fleet received false orders from their own command ship. "All units retreat to Sector 7. Attack pattern Delta. Cease fire immediately." The conflicting orders created chaos. Krivan ships began firing on each other. Some retreated. Others advanced. Their perfect military discipline became their downfall. Ryan saw the opportunity. "All ships, execute Plan Omega." The human fleet struck at the confused Krivans. Ship after ship was disabled. The mighty Grand Fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds was falling apart. The Krivan commander finally realized what had happened, but it was too late. His fleet was scattered, confused, and mostly disabled. He had one choice left. "We surrender," came the message. The Krivan Grand Fleet surrenders to humanity. The battle was over. In 3 days of fighting, humanity had defeated a force 10 times their size. They had used intelligence instead of brute force, strategy instead of pure firepower. As the disabled Krivan ships floated in space, Ryan broadcast a message to the galaxy. "Let this be a lesson. Numbers mean nothing. Technology means nothing. The will to protect others, the determination to stand against injustice, that's what makes the difference." The victory at Jupiter changed everything. The mighty Krivan Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was broken. Other species watched in amazement as humanity achieved the impossible. The age of conquest was truly ending. The age of protection had begun. Adam Wright stood on the bridge of the human flagship Liberty. Behind him, a fleet of 200 ships held position above the Kryvan homeworld. After the defeat at Jupiter, the Kryvan High Council had requested this meeting. They had no choice. Their empire was crumbling. The planet below looked peaceful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It reminded Adam of Earth before the attack. But he pushed that thought away. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice and prevention. The Kryvan High Council appeared on the main screen. 5 figures in elaborate robes sat in their ancient chamber. For the first time in their history, they were the ones looking up at conquerors. Human right. The lead counselor began. We accept our defeat. What are your terms? Adam had prepared for this moment. The human leadership had debated long and hard about what to do with the Kryvans. Some wanted to destroy their military completely. Others wanted to occupy their worlds as they had occupied Earth. But humanity had chosen a different path. First, Adam said, the Kryvan Empire will be dissolved. Every species you have conquered will be freed immediately. The counselors shifted uncomfortably. Their empire included 43 conquered worlds. Trillions of beings lived under their control. Second, Adam continued, all Kryvan military technology will be surrendered to the human peacekeeping force. Your warships, your weapons, your defense systems. You would leave us defenseless. A counselor protested. No, Adam replied. You will keep enough ships for system defense and patrol, but you will never again have the power to invade other worlds. The terms continued. The Kryvans would pay reparations to all conquered species. They would open their technology archives to help rebuild damaged worlds. They would submit to monitoring by human peacekeepers. And if we refuse? The lead counselor asked. Adam's voice remained calm. Then we will disable every ship, every weapon, every military installation you have. We won't destroy them. We won't kill anyone. But you will be helpless until you agree to our terms. The counselors discussed among themselves. They had ruled through fear for so long, they couldn't understand mercy. They kept looking for the trap, the hidden cruelty. But there was none. Why? The lead counselor finally asked. Why not destroy us? We destroyed your cities. We killed billions of your people. Because we're better than you. Adam said simply. We know what it's like to lose everything. We won't inflict that on others. Not even on you. The signing ceremony happened the next day. One by one, representatives from conquered worlds arrived. Many hadn't been home in generations. They watched as the Kryvan High Council signed away their empire. Nickel Turner established the Human Peacekeeping Force headquarters on a space station orbiting the Kryvan homeworld. From here, they would monitor the galaxy for signs of aggression. This isn't occupation, Nickel explained to her staff. It's prevention. We're here to make sure they keep their word. The dissolution of the Kryvan Empire took months. Human ships escorted Kryvan forces as they withdrew from conquered worlds. Each liberated planet celebrated differently, some with joy, some with disbelief. Many couldn't remember what freedom felt like. On the planet Vega Prime, enslaved for 200 years, the population watched Kryvan ships leave their system. An elderly Vegan spoke to the human peacekeepers. We had given up hope, he said. We thought the galaxy belonged to the strong, that the weak had no choice but to serve. Not anymore, replied Captain Lisa Park. The galaxy has new rules now. As news spread, other aggressive species took notice. The Zelethi Empire, which had been planning expansion, quietly canceled their invasion plans. The Drawn Collective stopped raiding frontier worlds. The message was clear. Humanity was watching. Adam Wright returned to Earth after the Kryvan surrender. He stood at the memorial for the 3 billion, where names stretched along walls of black stone. His daughter, born free, held his hand. Why did we help them, Daddy? She asked. The aliens who hurt us. Because that's what makes us human, Adam replied. We protect others, even those who were once our enemies, especially them. The transformation was complete. From victims to protectors, from the conquered to the guardians, humanity had found its purpose in the stars. 10 years passed since the fall of the Krivan Empire. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries reopened. Species that had never met began working together. Fear was slowly being replaced by hope. Chris Bell walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building on Neutral Station Alpha. Once a refugee hiding in Earth's ruins, he now served as humanity's ambassador. Today was special. For the first time in galactic history, all known species were sending representatives to a single assembly. The council chamber was massive, built to hold delegates from over 100 worlds. Chris took his seat and watched as aliens of every shape and size filed in. Some had tentacles, others had wings. Some breathed different atmospheres and sat in special chambers, but they all came for the same reason. We gather today to ratify the Galactic Peace Charter, announced the council speaker, a crystalline being from Proxima 7. Based on the human doctrine, this charter will govern how we interact as a galactic community. The charter was simple but powerful. No unprovoked attacks. No forced conquests. No enslaving of other species. Disputes would be settled through mediation, not warfare. And if anyone broke these rules, the human peacekeeping force would respond. As each species voted, Chris remembered the skeptics. Many had said humanity was too young, too inexperienced to lead. Others feared humans would become tyrants like the Krivans. But actions spoke louder than words. The vote was unanimous. Every species, even former conquerors, agreed to the charter. They had seen what humanity offered: protection without control, strength without oppression. 3 days later, the charter faced its first test. The Zelethi Empire, known for their warrior culture, invaded the peaceful world of New Haven. They thought humanity wouldn't respond quickly enough to stop them. They were wrong. Within 6 hours, a human fleet arrived at New Haven. Captain Paul Kim commanded the response force. His ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, surrounding the Zelethi invasion fleet. Zelethi Commander, Paul broadcast, "You are in violation of the Galactic Peace Charter. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The Zelethi commander laughed. "We are warriors. We fought for thousands of years. You think your charter can stop us?" Paul didn't argue. He gave the order: disable their fleet. The battle lasted 17 minutes. Human ships used precision strikes to disable Zelethi weapons and engines. Not a single life was lost, but the entire invasion fleet was left helpless. As the Zelethi ships drifted powerlessly, Paul delivered the sentence: "Your military will be reduced by 90%. Your weapons will be confiscated. You will pay reparations to New Haven. And you will be monitored for the next 50 years." The Zelethi commander was shocked. "You defeated us so easily." "We've had practice," Paul replied. "We learned from the best teachers, those who conquered us. Now we use that knowledge to protect others." Back on Earth, the transformation continued. Cities had been rebuilt, but now they hosted beings from across the galaxy. The Human Defense Academy trained peacekeepers from every species. Former enemies learned to work together. Maria Rodriguez, now director of the academy, watched her latest class graduate. Humans stood next to Krivans, Zelethi next to vegans. All wore the same uniform. All swore the same oath. "You are not soldiers of conquest," Maria told them. "You are guardians of peace. You protect those who cannot protect themselves. You stand between the strong and the weak." The galaxy had found its protectors. Trade flourished. Science advanced. Species that had spent millennia in fear now worked together on massive projects. Space stations, colony ships, research facilities rose where battlefields once burned. In the council chambers, Chris Bell received daily reports. Border disputes settled peacefully. Trade agreements signed. Scientific knowledge shared. The galaxy was learning a new way to live. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And at the center of it all stood humanity, the species that had turned its greatest trauma into the galaxy's greatest gift: peace through protection. 50 years had passed since the first Krivan attack on Earth. Rachel Barnes stood at the memorial in New Geneva, the city built where the old one had been destroyed. The morning sun cast long shadows across the crystal walls where 3 billion names were etched forever. Rachel touched her grandmother's name on the wall. She had never met her, but she had heard the stories: how the sky turned red, how the buildings vanished, how humanity almost ended that day. "Thank you for not forgetting," said a voice behind her. Rachel turned to see an elderly man. His name tag read Jake Coleman, survivor. He was one of the few left who had lived through that first day. "My students come here every year," Rachel replied. She taught at the Galactic Peace Academy. "They need to understand why we do what we do." Jake nodded. "I was drinking coffee when it started. Just a normal morning. Then everything changed." He looked at the memorial. "But look what we built from the ashes." Around them, New Geneva buzzed with life. Beings from 100 worlds walked the streets. The city hosted the Galactic Council, the peacekeeping headquarters, and the largest interspecies university in known space. Where death had once reigned from the sky, now knowledge and cooperation flourished. That afternoon, Rachel entered her classroom. 20 students from different species sat waiting. Some had fur, others had scales. One breathed methane through a special mask. But they all wore the same eager expression. "Today, we discuss the miracle of Earth," Rachel began. 50 years ago, humanity faced extinction. Today, we protect the galaxy. How did this transformation happen? A Krivan student raised a tentacle. Rachel still found it remarkable that Krivan youth now trained as peacekeepers. Was it revenge that drove humans? The student asked. "My grandparents were part of the empire that attacked Earth." "No," Rachel said gently. "It wasn't revenge. It was something stronger. It was the decision to make sure no one else would suffer like we did. Your presence here proves that decision was right." She activated the holographic display. Images from the past 50 years appeared. The liberation of conquered worlds, the establishment of trade routes, the joint exploration missions to distant galaxies, the massive shield network that now protected every inhabited planet. The human doctrine started as a simple idea, Rachel continued. Those who attack the defenseless will face consequences, but it grew into something larger. It became a promise that the strong would protect the weak. Another student, a Zealothi, spoke up. "My people were warriors. We thought strength meant conquest. Humans taught us that true strength means protection." Rachel smiled. This was why she taught, to see understanding bloom across species that had once been enemies. That evening, a ceremony took place in the council chambers. The last of the original human freedom fighters were being honored. Paul Martinez, now very old, slowly walked to the podium. 50 years ago, I was a slave in the asteroid mines," he said. "I watched. I learned. I waited. We all did. Not for revenge, but for justice. Not to conquer, but to free." The chamber was silent. Every being present understood the weight of his words. "Today, my great-granddaughter serves on a peacekeeping ship with crew from 12 different species. My Krivan neighbor helped me plant a garden. The Zealothi family down the street invited me to dinner. This is the galaxy we built." As the ceremony ended, Rachel walked through the academy grounds. She passed the Unity Garden, where plants from every member world grew together. She saw students from former enemy species studying together, laughing together, planning a future together. The first stars appeared in the evening sky. Somewhere among them, peacekeeping ships patrolled. On distant worlds, beings slept safely, knowing they were protected. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. When you push humanity to the edge of extinction, you don't break them. You forge them into something extraordinary. something unbreakable, something that will stand guard forever, ensuring that never again will the strong prey upon the weak. The memorial still stood, a reminder of the price of unpreparedness. But around it rose a galaxy transformed, a testament to humanity's greatest gift, the power to turn tragedy into hope, conquest into protection, fear into peace. Never again. The promise was kept.